Welcome back. After. The meal is delicious, and somehow, over the 3 courses and coffee, Hannah managed to forget Neville and April and all her worries, or at least push them to the back of her mind, and just enjoy being with Will. They may not have that many of these nights left after all. Once the baby comes, that would be an end to cozy little bistro suppers, at least for a good few months. She needs to make the most of this, make the most of the time they have left with just the two of them. They talk about Will's boss, about the possible partnership position, and what it would mean for Will if he got it. More money, yes, but also long hours, more responsibility, more pressure to bring in new clients, all of which would be a double-edged sword with a new baby at the same time. They talk about the birth, the weird mix of emotions and admin that having a baby entails. The deadline is coming up for choosing a hospital, and they haven't even started to look into classes yet. Antenatal classes yet. Hannah talks about work, about the funny customers who come in every few weeks asking for books he's read about in the paper but can never remember the titles. This week's was Scott's Authors. Covers got a wee lad on the front and a funny name. Will guesses the answer correctly without too many clues. Shuggy Bane. Sometimes Hannah wonders if her customer's memory is really as bad as he makes out, or whether it becomes like a game between them. And there's another, an elderly lady who comes in every Tuesday and buys a book, and then comes back the following Tuesday and tell Hannah how many marks out of 10 she would award it. She has never even given 10. Hannah got 8.7. This week, Razorblade Tears got 9.2. The first Bridgerton novel got 7.7. Lord of the Flies got a surprising 4.1. Hannah finds it impossible to predict what will score high. Some of her most confident recommendations bomb, but she lives in hope of finding something that will hit the magic jackpot. At last, Will asks for the bill and then gets up to go to the bathroom. The check arrives while he's away. Normally, Hannah would just glance at the total and then shove the printout across the table along with their joint account card. But this time she looks at it, really looks at it. The starters alone were more than a tenner each, and 27 pounds for a bottle of Pinot. Will hasn't even drunk all of it, just half. Why on earth did they order a bottle when she's not even drinking? And the breadsticks? 3 pounds for breadsticks? She had no idea they even charged for those. She pays and is sitting, chin in her hands, waiting for Will to come back, when she hears a clear, carrying voice from behind her. Darling, you call this Vesper? It tastes more like gin and tonic, and not a good one. All the hairs on the back of Hannah's neck prickle. The voice is coming from the restaurant bar. It's a drawling, confident, and achingly familiar. Before she can think better of it, Hannah stands up, swings around, sending her chair clattering to the floor. But even as she scans the rows of backs at the chrome counter, her heart is sinking, and she knows the truth. It wasn't April. It's never April. It was just a well-to-do woman with an English accent. Hannah's own longing did the rest, just as it has 100 times before. What if April playing a joke? That would be really cruel, right? Allow me, says a voice at her elbow, and Hannah turns to see a tall, bespectacled figure holding out her handbag. Hugh? She manages a smile as she takes the bag. This is a nice surprise, and thank you. It's not a surprise, not exactly. Edinburgh is a small city in a lot of ways, and Hugh practice isn't far from the restaurant. But it's a big enough place that it's still fairly unlikely to run into friends at random. You're most welcome, Hugh said, with that oddly shy formality he's had for as long as she's known him, even after a decade of friendship and more landmark events than she can remember. He was Will's best man at their wedding, for goodness sake. They kiss each other on both cheeks, and as she breathes in Hugh's expensive aftershave, Hannah remembers with a laugh at herself how strange and performative that continental kiss first felt to her when she arrived at Oxford. And now look at her, air kissing without a second thought. How are you? She asks. I'm all right, he said thoughtfully, looking at her with a slightly discomfited air of appraisal, like she is one of his patients. More to the point, how are you? I thought of you yesterday when I heard the news. I'm okay. It's not a lie, not really. But Hugh is Will's best friend and confidant, not hers. Hannah, well, she hasn't really had a best friend, if she's being honest. Not since April. It's not that she doesn't have friends. She goes for a drink with Robin every now and again. And there's a handful of people she knows through work or from her various short-lived hobbies. Pottery was the one that lasted longest. But you don't have to be a psychoanalyst to join the dots, and Hannah's not an idiot. She knows the truth. Since April died, she hasn't allowed herself to make anyone that important to her because she doesn't trust them not to get snatched away. Will is the sole exception, the only person who has penetrated that self-protective armor. And maybe he only managed it because she had let him under her skin before April died. Hugh, the voice comes from over Hannah's shoulder, and she turns to see Will weaving his way between tables toward them. Mate, how are you? They hug, a kind of manly backslap, and Hugh say, I'm good. I was just telling Hannah my thoughts went to both of you when I heard the news. Yeah, it's a lot, Will says with an awkward shrug. His eyes meet Hannah's. He knows how much she hates talking about this, particularly in public. They both live in dread of someone leaning across, tapping their shoulders. I'm sorry, but I couldn't help it over here. Perhaps Hugh senses their discomfort because he straightens, claps Will on the shoulder, and says, well, anyway, I won't keep you both, but let's have drinks. It's been too long. It has, Will agrees. I was thinking the other day I haven't seen you since the cricket season finished, and I don't think we've been out as a threesome since. God, probably June? That was right about when they found out about the baby. Okay. Hannah stopped accepting invitations out to the pub because she wasn't ready to tell anyone the news, and it was getting increasingly hard to explain away her tiredness and inability to drink. But it's different now. She's visibly pregnant, and in any case, Hugh was one of the first people Will rang after their 12-week scan. We should do brunch, Hugh is saying now as he buttons up his overcoat. Soon. Make the most of your freedom while you still have it. He gives a laugh, and Hannah and Will echo it. Take care of yourself, Hugh, Hannah says, and she means it. She is genuinely fond of Hugh, and this must be hard for him as well. He was there that night after all. He didn't go through what Hannah did. He wasn't April's best friend, but he was dragged through the court too, given evidence on what time they found her, how hard he had fought to revive her. And then she and Will have each other. Hugh has no one. He lives alone. He doesn't even have a steady girlfriend as far as Hannah knows, though presumably he was dining with someone tonight. He's not like Will, easily gregarious, finding something in common with everyone he meets. He's charming and gentle and courteous, but there's a reserve that can be hard to get past. He's more like Hannah in that respect. Perhaps that's why he followed Will to Edinburgh and why he's made sure to keep in touch with Emily, even after all these years. Like Hannah, he doesn't make friends lightly, so he can't afford to lose them. She and Will watch as Hugh tuck his umbrella under his arms and disappear out into the twinkling darkness of a rainy Edinburgh night. The lamps glittering off the steep steps, the honey-colored stone alleyways drenched to dark brown. For a moment, Hannah sees him, silhouetted against a street lamp. Then he's gone. Will? Hugh? Before. As the door closed behind April, Hannah found herself feeling angry in some way she could not quite justify. Wasn't it enough that April had looks and clothes and money and that she had to share a room with her? And Will, what was what she really meant, but she wouldn't let herself admit that. Still though, did she really have to muscle in on everything that was Hannah's? For a second, Hannah was tempted to turn away, go back to her room, wipe off the makeup, and throw the heels into the cesspit of April's wardrobe. But she knew that would be stupid. Dr. Myers was expecting her. She had said she would go. It would be rude to just not turn up, and cutting off her nose to spite her face. Instead, she counted to 10 in her head, then teetered unsteadily across the landing to knock on Dr. Myers' door. What? So she let the door close in Hannah's face? Whoa, okay. Hello. It was a tall, willowy girl with long, dark hair who opened it, looking Hannah up and down with a slightly superior air. A gust of laughter and conversation flooded past her in the corridor. Can I help you? Hi, Hannah said a little nervously. I'm Hannah. Dr. Myers invited me to his drinks party. Hannah Jones? Dr. Myers' familiar voice came from behind the girl, and he slipped his arm around her shoulders in a gesture that could have simply been an avuncular way of ushering the girl aside to make room for himself in the doorway, but could have been something more possessive. He was wearing a wine-colored velvet jacket, the same white silk cravat he had worn at Hannah's first tutorial. Welcome, welcome. Come in, make yourself at home in my humble abode, such as it is. Have a glass of champagne. The willowy girl stood back, and Dr. Myers showed Hannah into the wood-paneled sitting room full of students. Looking around, Hannah saw that they were overwhelmingly female. She could pick out a few boys here and there, but the ratio was maybe 5-1 in favor of women. Perhaps that wasn't surprising, though, given that Dr. Myers taught English, which was a female-heavy subject. There was a small table standing by a crackling fire, holding a tray of empty glasses, and Dr. Myers picked up a flute and filled it from a bottle that Hannah recognized as the one April had taken from the fridge. Hannah, let me introduce you to a few of my favorite students, Dr. Myers said expansively, waving his hand around the group. This is Clara, a luminary in the Oxford Union. He indicated a small pixie-faced girl curled up in the window seat, who turned to the sound of her name and nodded briefly before continuing her conversation. Orion Williams, a particular bright third year. He indicated a tall, dark-haired boy standing by the fireplace who nodded a little awkward and gave Hannah a shy smile. Ruby Ray, shining star of my second-year tutorial group. He bowed with get it right, Annette. He bowed with a solemnly to the girl who had opened the door to Hannah. And, oh, this is one of my newest prodigies, the sparkling April Clark Cliveden. He stood back and Hannah saw April, perched on the arms of the wingback chair next to a square-shouldered boy wearing a navy blazer that Hannah vaguely recognized as a sporting blue. Everybody, Dr. Meyer looked vaguely around the room and then put his arms around Hannah, his palm hot and a little damp against her bare skin. Allow me to introduce the thrilling, gifted Hannah Jones, who is in process of proving once again that many of Oxford's finest minds come from a state school, single-parent, working-class background. There was a ripple of approval from round the room. We're so open-minded, such a mediocrity. Hannah opened her mouth and then shut it again, unable to think of what to say. She was still groping for the appropriate response when one of the students behind Dr. Myers touched his arm and whispered something, and he gave a little jump. Oh, yeah, thank you. Well remembered, Madeline. Excuse me, Hannah. I must tend to the connects. He gave her shoulder a little squeeze and then released her and hurried away. I didn't realize you were so brave, said a mocking voice in her ear, and Hannah turned to see that April had disentangled herself from the boy in the blazer and was standing behind her. She was laughing. Such tenacity, fighting your way up from the mean streets of Dodsworth. Oh, piss off, Hannah said crossly. I don't know where he got all that from. I certainly didn't tell him I was working class. Take the compliment and run, darling. I would. I know, Hannah almost said, but she bit her lip. Those sound like fighting words to me. An hour into the party, Hannah was beginning to wish she had never come. Her feet were in agony in April's heels, which April knew that they would be, and she was listening to a long, tedious rowing anecdote from the boy in the navy blazer, the one April had shrugged off earlier in the evening. Far from being sophisticated, she had imagined the night seemed to have descended into Dr. Meyer smoking filthy cigars and holding court with the three prettiest girls in attendance, one of whom was April. He was sitting back in an armchair by the fire, April on the armrest, Ruby on the other, and a beautiful red head Hannah didn't know sitting on a footstool at his feet. As she watched, April turned and mouthed something over Dr. Meyer's head. She wasn't sure what it was, but April's expression was full of wicked laughter. She thought it might have been so predictable. Totally gorgeous, maybe for a drink or something, the Rowan Blue said, and then stopped, seeming to expect some kind of answer. Hannah shook herself and looked away from where Dr. Myers had slipped a hand around April's waist to steady her on the chair's narrowed arm. I'm sorry, what did you say? I said you're absolutely gorgeous, the boy said. He had flushed a deep red that went from his shirt collar up to his fringe. I'd love to take you for a drink sometimes, maybe Vincent's. I'm a member, or somewhere else. You choose. Hannah felt her color rise in sympathy. Oh, God, that's so kind of you, but what could she say? She had a boyfriend? That was a lie, as 2-minute inquiry in the JCR would reveal. That was the problem with living in college. Though it had felt very big on the first day, she was rapidly coming to realize how very small Pale Hand really was. Part of her wondered if she would say yes. Was she really going to spend 3 years pining after someone who had never looked twice at her? Someone, moreover, who was going out with her best friend? Get out, get drunk, sleep with someone else, and put Will out of her head once and for all. That was what she would have told a friend in her position. But whoever was destined to help her get over Will, her heart knew that this boy was definitely not that person. I'm sorry, there's someone else, she said at last, hoping that would suffice and he would not inquire any further. The boy flashed an even deeper shade red, his face pomegranate colored above his dark blue blazer. Oh, yeah, sure, of course. No worries at all. I mean, well, if you change your mind, Jaunty Westwell. He held out a hand. I'm over in Cloisters. Thanks, Hannah said. It's a really kind invitation. She stood up, casting about for an excuse to end the conversation. Um, I think I'm just going to pop to the bathroom. Yeah, sure, no problems. Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you too, Hannah said, and she drained her wine, put down her glass, and hobbled painfully out into the corridor, where she stood for a moment, catching her breath and trying not to groan inwardly at the hash she had made of turning down Jaunties gracefully. So, said a drawling voice from behind her, and she turned to see April closing the door of Dr. Meyer's room. Someone else, eh? Who's the lucky man? Hannah felt her cheeks flush again. Oh God, I only said that to get rid of him. You should have said yes. I know Jaunty. He's thick as a pig's shit, but he's a sweetie, and more to the point, his dad owns Westwell Pharmaceuticals. He can't be that thick, Hannah said, irritable, pulling off first one of April's teetering high heels, then the other. She felt as if she had descended a step in an imaginary staircase, suddenly 6 inches shorter than April. I mean, he did get into Oxford to study English. Oh, you, April said affectionately. You so naive, Hannah. First, he's a Rowan Blue. Second, did I mention his dad owned Westwell Pharmaceuticals? So, you still have to pass the entrance exam. April made a dismissive noise through her nose. Oh, that. I had an ex at Kearney who made a pretty good living taking people's BMAT for them. That's medicine, Hannah retorted, but half-heartedly. Well, whatever the equivalent is for English, just because you wouldn't do that doesn't mean everyone else is as high-minded as you. April, you shouldn't talk like that. Why not? Because people will think I brought my way into? April said, laughing. So what? They already think that. Why not give them the satisfaction of thinking they're right? But they're not, Hannah exploded. I know full well they're not. Why do you talk like this? I've read your essays, April. You've got nothing to prove. Exactly, April said, and suddenly she was no longer laughing but deadly serious. I have nothing to prove, so let them say what they want. There was a silence. Then Hannah said, I'm turning in. What about you? I don't know, April said. She looked out the window at the top of the staircase, across the glittering roof of the college, and away towards the water meadows beyond the ices, stripped black and white in the frosty moonlight. I'm not sure. Horatio asked me and a couple of girls to go for a drink in town. I'm not sure if I can be bothered, though. Horatio? Hannah knew the single word dripped disapproval, but it was too late to take it back. He's not my tutor, April snapped. He's a tutor, though. Don't you think this is a bit inappropriate? We're not in high school, April said impatiently. Then she turned and opened the door to Dr. Meyer's room, letting out a gust of cigarette smoke and laughing conversation. I don't know. I haven't made up my mind. Don't wait up. Hannah said, and the door slammed behind April. Won't. She finished to the empty corridor and signed, picked up the borrowed high heels, and crossed the hallway to go to bed. How is she her best friend? Please get to that point. After. When they got home from the restaurant, Will falls into bed and straight into a deep slumber. But Hannah, though she felt tired in the taxi, finds she can't sleep. She tries hot milk, white noise to drown out Will's snores, but nothing works. Her joints hurt, her breasts are sore, everything aches, and she can't find a comfortable position in bed. At last, she pulls out her headphones and does something she hasn't done for months, years even. She opens up Instagram and navigates to the April CC April account. April was the first person Hannah had ever met with Instagram, back in the days when filters were strictly for coffee. and plenty of people didn't even have a camera on their phone. But April had been one of the early handfuls to download the app, and she had known somehow that this would be big. Now Hannah scrolls back through ancient selfies with sun-soaked filters and frames to make them look like Polaroids. There are photos of April draped across punts, pictures from college bars, a snap of some tuxedo-attired boy being led by the tie-down St. Aldates, all the drunken, laughing, unself-conscious mementos of student life a decade ago. She knows the photos well, and not just because the press mined them for publicity shots. In the early days, when they were all that was left of April and of her own life at Pelham, she had flicked through them obsessively, noting every little, reading every comment, each one testament to April's impact on the world and the gaping hole she left. Rest in peace, April. Oh my God, still can't believe you're gone. Love you. Wow, she fit. What a shame. Laugh out loud. It wasn't healthy. She knew that, even at the time. And at last, the pain the pictures caused outweighed her need to look, to prove that April had been real and flesh and blood, and as beautiful and vivacious and happy as Hannah remembered. So finally, as the comments died away and the likes slowed down, she forced herself to stop going back. But now, looking at them again, she is struck anew by April's luminous, unpolished beauty, not just in the photos where she is dressed up to the nines, hip jutting, makeup on point, but even more so in the candid snaps. April lying in bed in a splash of morning sun, makeup free, smiling sleepily at the camera. Oh, hi there, she had captioned that one, and then a series of hashtags. No filters, no makeup selfie, Sunday morning, and God, I look a mess. I miss you, Hannah types out in the comments, and for a moment her finger hovers above the send arrow, but she doesn't post. Instead, she deletes the 3 words and goes back to April's feed, scrolling through the decade-old snaps. A young, sharp cheekbone Will laughing at her from the banks of the Isis makes her stop momentarily, ambushed by his vulnerability. And there, halfway down the page, is a photo that always makes her catch her breath, even though she knows it's coming. A picture of herself and April, side by side, each holding up a drink. April has her mouth pursed in a selfie pout, but Hannah looks taken by surprise. She is laughing, uncertain, looking not at the camera but at her friend. It's a Shirley Temple, Daddy promised, kiss emoji, reads the caption, and Hannah feels something clench inside her, a mix of grief and anger. And, she doesn't even know what emotion anymore. For a long moment, she stares at the picture, at the two of them, so heartbreakingly young and vulnerable, and happy. Happy in a way that she can't remember being for a very long time. The urge to reach out through the years and warn the 2 girls in the photo is almost painfully strong. So strong that suddenly Hannah can't bear it anymore. She shuts down the phone and lies there staring in the darkness, thinking of what might have been. Perhaps it's because of the photos, but the next morning, Hannah wakes early in the pre-dawn from a dream of April. It was not the usual nightmare. Neville's shadow looming out of the darkness, April's body golden in the lamplight, her cheeks still flushed. Instead, she was walking up one of the narrow medievals, winding winds, the twists and turns their way up from the garden all the way to the lawn market in front of Edinburgh's castle. She was going slowly, her hand over her baby in her belly, and then, as she rounded a corner in the passage, she saw it, a flash of gold, a shimmering of silk, and somehow she knew it was April. Hannah sped up, going as fast as she could up the winding passageway, hurrying up the steps, and she could hear April's footsteps in front of her and see her flitting shape silhouetted against the walls of the alley by the lamps, but she could not catch her. At the top, where the stairs spit you out suddenly into the bustle of the lawmaker, all tourists and bagpipers and souvenir stands, she stopped, catching her breath, casting around to see where April had gone. And then she saw her, one last glimpse of a mocking face as she disappeared into the crowd, far down the street. And the strangest thing was that it was April. But not April as Hannah knew her, not the April of the Instagram photos, skin dewy and fresh, a trace of puppy fat lingering on the curve at the curve of her jaw. It was April as she would have been now, a woman on the cusp of her 30s, her features sharpened to show the bones beneath the softness of adolescence. In her dream, Hannah hurried towards her, pushing her way through the crowd, straining for one last glimpse. And then she woke. Now she lies there, catching her breath, trying to anchor herself back to the present day. Gray lights filter through the cracks in the curtains, and beside her she can hear Will's slow, gentle breathing. Her bladder is complaining. She also needs the loo these days, but she can't quite force herself out of bed yet. She needs a moment to orient herself, remind herself of what's real and what's not. It's been a long time since she dreamed of April, longer still since she caught sight of her across a crowded room. There was a time when she would find herself scanning crowds for April's face, her heart skipping a beat at the sound of a certain laugh rising above the hubbub, at the sight of a close-cropped blonde head weaving towards the bar. But over the last few years, those occurrences have become more and more rare, until tonight anyway. Now, it's as if the news of John Neville's death has stirred the mud of her memories. The images from the past float up from the depths, not the ones memorialized in April's Instagram, but others, more intimate, more real. As she lies there gazing at the minute cracks and crannies in the ceiling, the faces of others rises up in front of her. Not as they are now, but as they were back then. Hugh streaking across New Quad on a dare one misty morning, wearing nothing but his glasses. The blackbirds rising all around him, flapping and shrieking their indignation. Emily bent over her books in Bodleian, that little frown line etched between her thick black brows, and Ryan jumping from the Pelham Bridge into the Cherwell in full white tie evening dress. Ryan running down Broad Street bare-chested, football shirt flying like a banner above his head after a Sheffield Wednesday win. Ryan in the Eagle and Child, downing pints of bitter and holding forth about the evils of capitalism. Then standing on a table shouting, "Rise up, my fellow workers, and seize the means of production." Then leaping over the bar and gulping directly from a beer tap before the astonished barmaid could do anything to stop him. He got thrown out for that, she remembers. "Next time I'll ban you for life, you fucking layabout student," the landlord had roared as he slung Ryan out into the streets, the others tumbling, giggling after him. "Fellow workers, my arse, you lazy little shit." Now she wonders how he is and feels more ashamed than ever of the way she cut him off after college. Beside her, Will stirs, and she looks over at him and feels her love for him clutch at her inside with a force that is almost painful. She has always loved him best when she is watching him unawares. Awake, he is self-possessed, polished, still very much the perfect-mannered private school boy who offered her a seat in the dining hall at Pelham that first night. And some part of her feels she has never really gotten to know him better than she did that first evening. But asleep, or in his unguarded moment, he is Will, her Will, and she knows and loves the very bones of him. He seemed to be dreaming, emotions chasing around his face, his eyes moving uneasily behind closed lids. She wonders what he is thinking, as she does so often. Will she ever learn to read him, to see the real depths of feeling that he hides behind his mild, amused manner? But perhaps that is why she loves him so much. The unattainable of him, the rare flashes of vulnerability that he reserves for her alone. Only once has she seen him cry, and that was after April's death, as they held each other and wept for what they both lost, but also what they had found in each other. Okay, so that's the end of those chapters. I was shocked to see that April let that door slam and close in front of Hannah's face, because Hannah was the one that was invited. So how did the door close in her face? Rude. On the piggyback of that, how the heck is April and Hannah best friends? I don't know. It's hard for me to picture it, because I guess I don't idolize people like that, and I don't treat friends like that. So I can clearly see they both are hiding or envious of each other. It's clear. Is that normal? What is normal? I just know I can't get with it. I don't understand it. Okay, so Dr. Myers is creep number 2. And it's so many women at his party. That party was weird anyway. I do remember in my day, I went to 2 teachers' houses, but we had to get parents' permission and all that stuff. But I was underage, so that's why. Yeah, but yeah, they're adults. Okay, so is Dr. Myers and April secretly doing something? Is that the one who was in the room with her when Will was at the diner? I don't know. And how could Hannah be that obsessive with Will from day one? And he didn't show her any type of interest or anything like that. Love at first sight? Is that what that is? Or is she possessive? She must be something, and April knew it. And that's why she cock block a lot. Oh, these chapters were something else that had you thinking, right? But that's it. That's all I got. We're going to have to see what's going on. Wait a minute. There's one thing she said, that she really don't know Will, but you so in love with him? Girl, we'll find out though, right? See you in the next chapters. Bye for now.